I feel awful about not keeping up with my girlfriend's dating expectations. As I reflect on these past 2 years, I can't help but marvel at the journey we've shared. We've woven our lives together piece by piece, and even though our bond feels strong and vibrant, I can see the undercurrents of her disappointment. I didn't realize until now how deeply my actions, or perhaps my lack of them, had impacted her, how they had somehow dimmed the brightness she so naturally brings into my life. When we first started dating, everything felt so easy, so seamless. We were the type of couple that other people notice, the ones who seem like best friends who just happen to be in love. We text each other all day, from the first good morning until we're both drifting off, our fingers slowing on our phones. She's my first thought each day and often my last. In those early months, our time together felt timeless, like it could stretch on forever without a single shadow of worry. I felt as though I had found someone who understood me better than I even understood myself. But in retrospect, maybe I was naive. I assumed that being present, being there in those small, quiet ways, was enough to prove my commitment. I'm there when she needs someone to vent to, I pay for our meals, I surprise her with thoughtful gifts, and I always show up in every way I know how. I've been careful never to raise my voice, never to react in anger, because to me, respect is non-negotiable. My goal has always been to make her feel secure, loved, and treasured. It's only now, after her honest feedback, that I understand her needs go beyond my attempts at being the steady presence she can rely on. Perhaps, as her boyfriend, I was too focused on what I thought a good partner should be: stable, consistent, reliable, that I forgot to consider what she truly needed: passion, spontaneity, and a sense that I was as invested in creating memories as I was in simply being there. Then came that year of long distance, when circumstances tested our relationship in ways I hadn't anticipated. She was bound by the watchful eyes of her parents, who, out of love and perhaps a touch of old-fashioned control, kept close tabs on her every move. They knew her whereabouts, limited her freedoms, and, in a way, inadvertently shaped the limits of our relationship. We only saw each other once a month, as often as I could afford the time and energy for the 2-hour bus ride. Those visits were precious to me, each day feeling like an extension of my commitment. I would stay with her for a few days, trying to make the most of our time, feeling like we were both putting in the effort to bridge the distance. Yet, I missed something important in those moments. To me, those weekends were proof of my commitment, of my willingness to make sacrifices for her. But for her, my once-a-month visits felt sparse, perhaps even indifferent. To her, my effort didn't match her own desire to see each other as often as possible. Her disappointment, though she held it back at first, lingered unspoken beneath the surface. When she finally shared her feelings, it was a shock that reverberated through me. I hadn't seen it coming. I thought I had been doing all I could. But maybe that's where I misunderstood. I had been doing what I could, but not what she needed. Hearing her express this disappointment was a moment of awakening for me. I could tell she wasn't angry, she was patient, gentle, even as she laid her feelings bare. She didn't blame me outright, but instead tried to make me understand how my choices affected her, how they made her feel. In her quiet, heartfelt words, she exposed the gap that had grown between us, one I hadn't even realized was there. It hurt, more than I cared to admit. I was disappointed in myself, in the assumptions I had made. I had always seen myself as a devoted partner, someone who would go to any lengths for the people I loved. And here she was, showing me the mirror, revealing that maybe I hadn't been going as far as I thought I was. It was humbling. She deserved more than just my intentions. She needed actions that resonated with her own expectations. This revelation weighed heavily on me, and it's not something I could simply fix overnight. Her needs and desires are valid, and they're not demands or ultimatums, they're expressions of what she hopes for in a relationship. They're expressions of how she wants to feel loved, cherished, and valued. I've spent a lot of time wondering how I could make up for what I hadn't done, how I could show her that I was willing to grow and change for her. And maybe that's the biggest realization of all, that love isn't just about compatibility or shared values. It's about learning to see through each other's eyes, to understand what truly matters to the other person, and to be willing to step outside our comfort zones for their sake. I've been grappling with how I can show her that she's worth every ounce of effort I can muster, even if it means challenging my own nature. Because for her, I want to be more. I want to be the person who not only says he loves her but shows it in ways that speak to her heart. As our relationship progressed, her circumstances became an unspoken but heavy presence between us. Her parents, though loving, were exceptionally strict. Their idea of caring for her meant keeping close tabs on her whereabouts, even down to her precise location at almost any time of the day. It wasn't just an occasional check-in, it was a constant. They knew when she left her apartment, where she was headed, and when she returned. She once explained it to me, saying that her parents only wanted to keep her safe, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this level of control kept her from experiencing a part of life she so clearly wanted to explore. This affected our relationship in ways that, for the longest time, we tried to ignore. She was unable to stay with me even for a weekend, unable to visit me or experience my world. It was always me who went to her, which in the beginning seemed fine. I knew what I was getting into. But as our relationship deepened, I could sense her frustration simmering beneath her usual gentle nature. She wanted the freedom to be spontaneous with me, to show up at my place, to call me up and say she was outside my building, to spend an entire weekend together without worrying about curfews or location tracking. And here I was, an introvert to the core. I've always preferred spending my time within the sanctuary of my own space, pursuing my quiet interests. Programming, creating music, lifting weights. These activities give me a sense of control, a feeling of accomplishment. I'm happiest when I'm working on a project, solving a problem, or hitting a personal goal. I find peace in routine, in knowing exactly what my day will look like. The thought of constantly venturing out, filling my calendar with new places, new people, and unexpected changes, it's not just unfamiliar, it's exhausting. Even with friends, I don't go out all that often. When I do, it's usually after mentally preparing myself, setting limits on how long I'll be out, knowing in advance where we're going. This has been my comfort zone for as long as I can remember, and as much as I care for her, I struggle with pushing past it. The idea of spending every weekend out, exploring the city, going to events, and traveling, it's daunting. When I look at her, I can see how these restrictions weigh on her. The frustration isn't just about her parents, it's about me too. She needs a partner who can be her companion in these experiences, who can show her the world she's longing to explore. I know this because she's mentioned it before, in subtle ways, a touch of longing in her voice as she talks about places she wants to see or things she wants to do. And when she suggests we go out and try something new, there's an unspoken hopefulness that I'll say yes without hesitation. But here lies the crux of our issue. While she yearns to break free, to experience all that life has to offer, I feel an overwhelming desire to retreat, to preserve the tranquility of my routine. It's not that I don't want to be with her, it's that I struggle with the idea of stepping outside of my comfort zone so frequently. For me, going out is a task that takes energy, and it's something I've never been naturally inclined towards. This difference between us has started to feel like a quiet but growing rift. I can sense her need for variety, for excitement, for moments that take her breath away. She longs to wander, to dive into the city and feel its pulse, while I would rather spend a quiet evening working on a song or tackling a new programming challenge. I often feel guilty, as though I'm failing her in a fundamental way, unable to give her what she wants and deserves. And the truth is, she's right to want more, to desire experiences beyond the walls of her apartment or the local spots we've come to frequent out of habit. Our personalities, so different yet compatible in other ways, have made it difficult for us to find a sustainable balance. She's expressed, not in anger but in a kind of gentle resignation, that she wishes I would push myself more, that I would be willing to try. And I want to, I really do. But every time I think about going out, planning an adventure, taking her to a new place. I feel the anxiety creeping in, the urge to stay within the familiar. It's not that I don't love her. In fact, I think it's because I love her so deeply that this causes me such inner turmoil. I want to be everything she deserves, to give her the experiences she dreams of. But at the same time, there's a part of me that fears losing myself, fears that by constantly stepping out of my comfort zone, I'll somehow lose the very things that make me who I am. I've tried to bridge this gap between us. When she suggested we explore the city together, I agreed. I wanted to see her eyes light up with excitement, to experience a small piece of her world. But more often than not, we would still end up gravitating toward familiar places. I'd find myself subtly steering us back to routines, to cozy evenings indoors, to places that don't push my boundaries. She would go along with it, and she never once complained. But I could see it in her eyes, a flicker of disappointment, a quiet acceptance that this might just be how things would always be with me. And so, I'm left with this question, this pressing need to figure out if there's a middle ground that doesn't require one of us to sacrifice too much. I don't want to be the reason she settles for less than what she's dreamed of. But I also know that, as much as I wish I could be the adventurous type, it's not something I can change overnight. I know her desire to explore goes beyond simple outings. She wants to feel alive in a way that staying indoors and repeating the same routines can't provide. To her, life is about newness, about seeing the world from different angles, immersing herself in its unpredictability. She wants to experience what's beyond the ordinary, beyond the four walls of her apartment. And while she's understanding and gentle with me, I can tell that her need for variety and exploration is growing stronger, as if it's part of her nature that she's slowly outgrowing the way things currently are. She's brought it up in her own way, careful to soften the words but unable to fully conceal the hope in her voice. She's told me stories of places she's read about, cities that are only a few hours' drive away, spots in our own city that have the kind of atmosphere she yearns for. She describes them with such fascination, her hands gesturing, her eyes brightening as she imagines us there together. But while she dreams of these new places, my mind tends to focus on what we already have. I find so much comfort in our little routines, those familiar evenings spent together, just the two of us, sharing meals, laughing at movies, or simply talking about life. To me, those moments are rare gems, and I can't help but feel that I'm showing her love by valuing this time we carve out for each other. But her heart beats with a different rhythm. I can see it every time she tries to suggest something new. She'll offer an idea, a spark in her eyes as she waits for my response, and though I try to meet her halfway, I can tell my enthusiasm doesn't quite match hers. I try, I really do, but we often end up in the places we already know, safe, predictable spots where I feel at ease. We go back to familiar cafes, revisit favorite parks, or even spend the night at her place, talking and ordering in. It's all so meaningful to me, every single moment, but I realize that for her, it's starting to feel repetitive, perhaps even stagnant. In her world, a date is an experience, an adventure, a chance to connect in a new way each time. To me, a date is just being with her, no matter where or how. I'm realizing now that while I feel comfort in the ordinary, she feels a yearning to break free from it, to explore what lies beyond the familiar. Our time together isn't boring to me at all. In fact, it's the opposite. I find peace, happiness, even fulfillment in these moments. They're my version of perfection, the kind of calm that I rarely find in other areas of my life. To sit with her, to just be, is everything I need. But I'm coming to understand that it's not everything she needs. She craves moments that are vivid and alive, experiences that will linger in her memory long after the night is over. And I feel guilty, as though my love of routine is depriving her of the excitement and spontaneity she's always wanted to share with me. There are times when I catch myself feeling like I'm not the partner she deserves, as if my way of loving her falls short of her hopes. It's not that she's ever made me feel inadequate, she's far too kind for that. But her gentle reminders, her subtle suggestions, her excitement at the thought of trying something new. They're signs that I can't ignore. It's as though she's trying to tell me, softly and without pressure, that she needs more than what I'm offering right now. We're both at different stages in life as well. She's in grad school, her days filled with ambition and dreams of the future. She has ideas of where she wants to go, both literally and figuratively, places she wants to see, experiences she wants to chase. She's building herself, expanding her horizons, and part of that journey includes exploring the world beyond her current boundaries. I admire that about her, the way she approaches life with an open heart and a sense of wonder. I, on the other hand, am already in the routine of a steady job, finding my peace in structure and predictability. My life feels set in a way that hers doesn't, and while I feel grounded by it, she might feel restricted. It's hard to admit, but I fear that if I don't try to change, I might be holding her back. She deserves a life full of experiences, one where she can look back and feel that she truly lived. And as much as I want to be part of that, I don't want her to feel trapped by my need for routine and familiarity. When I think about the future, I see us together, of course, but I wonder if we'll ever find that balance. I want her to feel the thrill of life, to have the kind of memories she dreams about. And at the same time, I want her to feel the comfort of our quiet moments, to understand how deeply I value the calmness we share. I know that life doesn't have to be one or the other, it's possible to have both. But finding that balance has proven harder than I imagined, especially when we're each so naturally inclined in different directions. For now, I'm still figuring out how to bridge this gap between us. I want to support her desires and help create those vibrant moments she longs for, but I don't know if I can change who I am at my core. It's not that I don't want to try, it's just that every time I step outside my comfort zone, I feel a tension within myself, a kind of resistance that makes it hard to fully embrace the experience. I've begun to wonder if there's a compromise that doesn't leave either of us feeling unfulfilled. Maybe it means going out with her more often than I do now, even if it feels challenging. Perhaps it's about finding new ways to explore, ways that might not overwhelm me but still allow her to feel the excitement she craves. Or maybe it's a conversation we need to have again, one where we can both share our needs openly and without judgment, where we can try to understand each other's worlds a little more deeply. I know that loving someone sometimes means stepping outside of yourself, reaching into places that aren't always comfortable. And for her, I'm willing to do that. I just hope that, as I make these efforts, she sees my intention, that she feels my love in the ways I'm able to show it, even if it looks different from what she had hoped. Because the truth is, I don't want to lose her. I don't want her to wake up one day and feel like she's settled for less than she deserves. She's the person I want by my side, the person I want to share my life with, and I'm willing to find a way to make this work if it means giving her the life she's dreaming of. As I sit here, reflecting on everything we've shared, I know this relationship is worth every bit of effort it might take. She's worth every moment of discomfort, every stretch beyond my boundaries. And maybe, just maybe, I'll find that stepping outside of my comfort zone isn't as frightening as I once thought, especially if it means creating memories with her that we can both cherish. The weight of these feelings grows heavier with each passing day, a constant reminder of the gap between who I am and who she wants me to be, or, at least, who she needs me to be. Her words echo in my mind, lingering like a gentle but persistent reminder: if you love someone, you should be able to inconvenience yourself for them. She wasn't harsh or accusing when she said it, it was more of an observation, an honest expression of what she believes love is meant to look like. But the impact of that sentence has stayed with me, pushing me to question myself, to wonder if I'm falling short of the love I want to give her. I can't help but feel like I'm not the partner she deserves, that maybe I'm failing her in ways that matter deeply to her. It feels as though I'm stuck in a role that doesn't quite fit, like I'm trying to be someone who isn't entirely me. She deserves a world full of exploration, excitement, and memories that light her up. And while I can try to provide that, I worry that my attempts may not feel authentic or sustainable. I'm torn between the desire to give her what she wants and the reality of my own nature, the tendencies that pull me toward stability, routine, and familiarity. The thought of talking with her about this again fills me with a quiet dread, not because I don't want to be open with her, but because I'm afraid of what I might hear. I'm afraid she'll confirm the fears I've kept to myself, that she might feel as though our relationship isn't giving her the experiences she's been dreaming of. But I know this conversation is necessary. I owe it to her to be honest, to acknowledge the parts of myself that might not align with her vision of our future. As I think about how to approach this, I realize that the only way forward is through vulnerability, something I haven't always been comfortable with. I'll have to tell her about my anxieties, about the way new experiences sometimes make me feel overwhelmed, about the struggle I face every time I consider stepping out of my comfort zone. I'll have to be honest about my fears, my reluctance, and, most of all, my worry that I'm not capable of being the adventurous partner she wants. I'm terrified that in doing so, I might make her feel even more frustrated, that I might leave her questioning whether she's settling for less than she deserves. But I also have to tell her about the love I have for her, the deep, unwavering affection that drives me to want to make this work, no matter how challenging it feels. I need her to know that even though I may not be naturally inclined toward adventure, I am willing to try, to stretch myself as much as I can. I want to explain that while I might not be able to fully share her love for exploration, I am willing to make compromises, to find ways to create a life together that honors both of our needs. When I finally work up the courage to have this conversation, I know it will be difficult. It's a conversation that may bring up difficult truths, possibly even painful ones. But at the same time, I know that love isn't about pretending or hiding parts of ourselves. It's about showing up, fully, with all the complexities and contradictions, and trusting that the person on the other side will see the effort, the love, and the desire to make things work. I imagine us sitting down, maybe over coffee or in one of the familiar places where I feel most comfortable. I picture myself telling her everything, opening up about the guilt, the anxiety, and the ways I've tried to push myself for her, even if it hasn't always been enough. I'll ask her what she truly needs from me, what compromises she might be willing to make, and if there's a way we can find a balance that leaves neither of us feeling like we're missing out. In my mind, I know that this conversation might bring clarity, maybe even relief. But I'm also preparing myself for the possibility that it could be a turning point, one where we confront the reality of our differences and decide if love alone is enough to bridge them. I don't want to lose her, and I'm prepared to make sacrifices. But I also have to be honest about what I can give without losing myself in the process. If she's willing to meet me in the middle, to appreciate the small ways I'm trying to grow, then perhaps we can create something that honors both of us. Perhaps we can find joy in a blend of her excitement for adventure and my love for calm moments. Maybe we can redefine what our relationship looks like in a way that allows her to feel alive and free while also letting me feel secure and grounded. And if that's not possible, if she realizes that her heart yearns for a different kind of love, one that I'm unable to provide fully, then I will have to respect that too. I'll have to let her go, as painful as that thought is, knowing that sometimes love also means accepting when it's time to release someone. It's not a conclusion I want to reach, but I know it's one I'll have to be prepared for if it comes to that. In the end, this journey has taught me so much about myself, about what I'm willing to do for love and the lengths I'm prepared to go for her happiness. It's shown me the beauty of compromise, the power of vulnerability, and the courage it takes to look at someone you love and say, I may not be everything you've dreamed of, but I am willing to try. And perhaps, whether we make it through this together or not, that willingness to grow for someone, to confront your own limitations and strive for something more, that's the truest form of love I've ever known.